In this project, I want to start by opening the file that I chose to use for this project. I'll select File and Open. I want to navigate to my project folders inside my Documents folder. So I'll click on Documents, go to Photoshop Projects. I have one called Typography, Lady Gaga. I'm going to double click it and open it up. And here's the one I want to use for my particular project. You can choose one of the others if you've downloaded it. I'm going to demo using this particular folder or file. I'll select it, click Open, and it opens it up inside Photoshop for me. Now that I have it open, I want to do a couple of things. Make sure that this is set to Essentials and then Reset Essentials. So we're all looking at the same user interface and workspace. We're not going to be using the Photoshop galleries, so I want you to click on this little dashed box right here. Click it and go down to Close the Tab Group. I'm going to move this over so you can see it better. So I'm going to click it and come down here and close that tab group. We're not going to use the library right now, so just close it up. Now we have a little bit more space to work with the windows and panels we want to use. Now that we have it open, we're going to start making some changes to it. Over here, I want you to duplicate this layer. It's a background layer right now. So click on this lock and unlock it. And I want you to drag it down and place it on top of the new layer icon, and it will duplicate it for you. Now it has two. Now come back over to the original and let's go ahead and lock it back up. I want you to rename this by selecting it, double clicking the text, and let's just call it Lady Gaga. Press your Enter key on your keyboard, and now you've got a duplicate of the original image. I'm going to go ahead and save this for now. File and Save As. Make sure you've navigated back out to your Typography Lady Gaga project folder. Make sure the save type is set to Photoshop because we want to be able to edit and make some additional changes to this file. Move this up a little bit so you can see everything. So if it's not Photoshop, click this and then select Photoshop, and now save it. Photoshop format options, click OK, and we've saved this file that we've opened in Photoshop with our two layers that we've created so far. Make sure in your Layers panel that the Lady Gaga layer on top is selected. You can tell because it's highlighted here. I want to desaturate this, that is, take out all the color and create a black and white style of image. And I'm going to do this destructively. Now you'll learn as we go along the difference between a destructive edit and a non-destructive edit. But for now, we will create a destructive edit. To do that, we'll select Image, Adjustments, scroll over here to the right, go down and find Desaturate, and click it. Notice we've gone from a color image to a black and white grayscale image. If you look over here in the Layers panel, the original color one is still there. The one above it that we copied and duplicated, this one is now a black and white or grayscale image. Go ahead and save quickly. File, Save, just to keep all of your changes and edits up to date as you work. In this step, what I want to do is play around with the image size and the canvas size, and also manipulate this image using what's called the crop tool right here. First off, let's take a look at what is the actual size of this image. If I select Image, in Image Size from the drop-down menus, it will show me that the width is 15 inches and the height is 13.042 inches. Resolution is 72 pixels per inch. Now, depending on which photo you opened for the project, you might have a different width and height at this particular time. Go ahead and click OK. We're not going to change the size here. We're actually going to use a different method. So I'll click OK. Now what I want to do is come over here and look at the crop tool. So I'll select crop, and you'll notice that a crop box automatically appears. And I want to choose what kind of crop I want to do. I want to have this be a very specific size, 8 inches in width and 10 inches in height. So I'm going to select this first option here, the W times H times resolution. I'm going to make sure my height is set to 8 inches. And I'm sorry, my width is set to 8 inches. My height is set to 10 inches. I want to make sure this is set to pixels per inch. I'm going to come over here and use this option to figure out which layout I want to use. I'm going to use the rule of thirds to help me control positioning of my image. And now I'm ready to resize and reposition this and crop it. Now I want to just have the face of Lady Gaga. Depending on which one you chose, make sure we crop it to fit only her face. So don't worry about too much at the moment. Grab it here in the corner and resize it till it's basically the size of her face in terms of from the top of her head to the bottom of her chin. Now once I have the general size created, I can hold my mouse down anywhere inside of here and drag and reposition this so that she's centered on my cropped image location. Once I'm happy with the result, notice I've got her eyes lined up here in my columns. I've got the head right at the top, the chin right at the bottom. I'm happy with this result. I'm going to come up here and commit to this and select the check mark. And notice it resizes this image and it crops out all the portions of the image that I no longer wanted to keep. So now I've got a much smaller version of this cropped image. If I check again, image and image size, you're going to see now it's at approximately 8 inches and the height is at 10 inches, and I'll click OK. In this step, I want to get rid of this background here and just have really her face. So I'm going to come down here and select the quick selection tool. Up along the top are the options. I'm going to select the first option. I'm going to drag my mouse over the area that I think I want to delete. And up here. Now I've gotten a little bit more than I wanted, so I'm going to come up and do the minus option and take this back out. I don't want the hair deleted, so I'm going to smooth that back out. Here I've gone too far again. This time I'm going to select the plus option and add some of this back in. Now I'm going to smooth these edges here in a minute and get this just the way I want. Put that back. Pretty close to how I want it to be. So let's go ahead and smooth the edges now. I'm going to select the Select and Mask button right here. And I want to smooth these edges, so I'm going to do a couple of things. One, I want to invert it because I want to keep this part and get rid of what's back here. I'm going to go ahead and select this Smart Radius so it's a little bit blurred when I do that. I can increase the size of this radius if I want, or bring it down. So very sharp or a little bit smoother. I'm going to smooth it out just a bit. I'm happy right about there. I can feather it some so it has, again, a little bit more of a smoother edge. If I go too far, then it's too much. So I'm going to come in right about there, and you can play with this till you're happy. Set my contrast up. If I go too high, it's sharp. Too low, it's too smooth. So just a little bit stronger there. And now I want to decontaminate the color, so make sure we keep a good separation here of my colors, and I want to output it to a new layer with a layer mask, so make sure that's chosen, and now I'll click OK. So it creates a new layer, and a layer mask on it. So you see this here is the actual mask that masks out this background. I want to select that mask. Make sure you click on the mask, and I'm going to make sure that my foreground and background colors are set to black and white. If they're not, see the small version of it? Just click there and it will reset it. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use my brush, my paint brush, and I want to set the size a little bit smaller. Right about there is good. I want to make sure the mode is set to normal, and I'm going to reduce my opacity a bit, maybe right around there, and my flow. How fast do I want this to erase? Now I've got these set, and I'm going to come through here, and what I want to do is with this set to white, it will add some of this back in from the mask. You see that? All right. If I do too much, swap it by hitting this double-sided arrow to black, and now I can come back through and take more out. So what I want to do is smooth out this edge so it looks fairly smooth here. There we go. Smooth this up here. And you get the idea. So I'm taking out some of this. I really want to focus mostly on her hair. So as I'm doing this, you can see it's erasing. If I set this flow up higher, or this opacity up higher, it'll erase more solidly. If I go too far, then I just swap it back to white and I can add it back in. Isn't that cool? So I want you to play with this until you end up with a fairly smooth edge that represents the part you want to keep, and get rid of whatever you don't want to keep. And you can play around with this until you are happy with the result. Okay? So far we've created this layer with the layer mask, and we've edited it to we're happy with the background and the results. What I want to do now is create a new file. So select File and New. Call this Gaga Portrait. All right. We're going to change this to Photo. We want it to be an 8 by 10. But I want you to change this resolution to 72. If we were going to print it, we'd leave it at 300 for the resolution. But since we're going to put this on our website for our online portfolio, we're going to change this to 72 pixels per inch. I want you to change the background color to black. So I'm going to click right here on this little icon chip. It brings up the color picker. I want to drag the slider all the way down to the bottom, and this all the way over to the very bottom corner so I can get black, and click OK. Now I'm ready to click OK here and create this new file. So here's my original that I've been working in, and here's my new one, which is a black background. What I want to do is bring this image into this file. So I make sure I'm on the layer I'm trying to edit. I'm going to get my Move tool, this guy right here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key on my keyboard, hold it down, drag this onto this tab for your new picture, and then drag it back down and release. Cool? So it copied it from here to here. Now I've got the mask with this layer on this particular new file. Now that we have the portrait copied into our new file, I want to free transform it. Select Edit and Free Transform. This will put a bounding box around this image. Make sure you're on the right layer when you're doing this. Now, anytime you choose an option or tool, across the top here on this options bar, it shows you what you can choose as far as customizing it. I want you to make sure that this Maintain Aspect Ratio, click it, is turned on. And what that does is make sure if I make it wider, it will make it proportionally taller at the same time. So I'm just going to drag it now and pull it out. And I want to keep pulling it. Notice I'm coming outside my document window. That's okay, because I want to get it right about there. I'm happy with that. Now I want to finish it, so I'm going to come over here. Do you see where it has a checkbox? I want to select, before I do that, let's make sure this is correct. Since I'm making this larger, I want to go ahead and do bicubic automatic, so when it resizes, it does it properly based on what it is I'm doing. So I'll select that. Now I'm going to select my check mark, and it completes the transformation of making this image a larger image. So what I want to do now is soften some more of these edges. I'm not quite happy with the way they look. I'm going to come over and make sure that my paintbrush tool is chosen, that my foreground and background are set to black and white. I want black on top because I'm going to do some erasing. I'm going to come up to my options bar. These are considered soft brushes. Notice how the edges are very soft. This is considered a hard brush, a very hard edge. Choose a soft brush, and then I'm going to go ahead and leave this set at 59. I mean, you can change it to something bigger or smaller as needed. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it right at about 59 or so. There we go. And I want to make sure this is set to normal. I'll leave my opacity at 100. My flow right now is set to 83. I might set that up, or I can leave it as is. We'll go ahead and set it up at the moment. And I want to smooth out this edge. Make sure though over here I'm on the thumbnail of the mask, not on the actual photo. So now I'm just going to sort of edge over this here just slightly and just smooth that out just a little. There we go. And that's good. I'm not going to do a whole lot there. I'm happy with those results. I want to create some guidelines and add a rectangular shape that is filled with black. So I'm going to select View. I want to make sure Rulers is checked. If it's not, just click it, and Snap is checked. So I have Rulers turned on, and I have the Snap turned on as well. If I go to Snap to, I have it set up to Snap to Guides and Grids. So we're all set up. Now what I want to do is come over to this ruler, hold my mouse down and drag it, and I want it to come right to the middle of my image. Now that I've created that, I'm going to make a new layer by clicking the new layer icon. I'm going to come over here and select my rectangular marquee. I want to fill it with black, so I'm going to get this part right here, come off of it, and drag down and make sure it snaps. See how it's snapping to that guide, and release. So now I've got a new layer and a rectangular marquee. I want to fill it with black, so I'm going to get my paint bucket right here. I'm going to select, make sure paint bucket's chosen, and click and fill. And I've covered up half of her face with this rectangular marquee. I'm going to deselect it. I no longer want to use it, so I'll do a select and deselect, or you can press Control D. I no longer need this guide, so I'm going to come back up to View, and I'm going to turn off Extras, and now I can no longer see the guide. In this next step, we're going to place the text. Over here in your Tools panel, scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see a T for Type or Text. Hold your mouse down on it. And we want to do Horizontal Type Tool, so I'll select that. Now once I've got that chosen, I need to choose a font. Up along the top are your options for your different fonts. So I want you to find a font that's fairly thick, like this Franklin Gothic Heavy, or maybe the font down here, which is, let's see what else we've got. This Rockwell Extra Bold. So find a font that's going to be relatively easy to read, a sans serif font, nothing too fancy, but thick and easily read. I'm going to actually choose this Gills Sans Ultra Bold. So I've got it chosen. I'm going to align it to the right, so I'll select the Align Right tool here for my text. And then I want to click on the color chip icon. I want to use a white, so I'm going to drag this all the way up till I make sure I have all white. FFFFFF is the white code. So click OK. I'm going to click right about here, and I'm ready to start typing my text. I want to change the size of this font to something not too big because I will resize it in a minute. I think I'll try 30. And right now I have it set to Gills Sans Ultra Bold, right aligned, color white. And I'm going to use the quote, if, and press enter, you don't have any shadows you are not standing in the light. I press enter twice, and then I'll type Lady Gaga. Alright, so we've got this basically set up. Now I want this to be bigger and a little closer together, so we're going to look at how to do that next. So as I look at this, I'm still in the Type tool. I am not quite sure if I like exactly how this is laying out, so I'm going to highlight it and select it all. And I really want this text to be a little bit closer together. There's too much leading in between the lines of text. So in order to modify that, I've got to get to the leading menu. So I'll select this little icon right here, and that brings up the character panel. If you don't see that particular icon, then just go to Window and Characters and turn it on that way. So I'm in the character panel, get back in there, and I want to go to leading, which is the spacing between lines of text. That's this one. This is leading. Alright, so I can do this and sort of key in different amounts or choose some of these default options, alright? Or I can just slide my slider along like this until I'm happy with the spacing that I see. Too much? Maybe a little bit more. Right around there. And you can just play with that. It's going to depend a lot upon what font you've chosen and your sizing. Now that I've got that leading set up, I want to come back through and I want to free transform this. So I'm going to select the Move tool, then select Edit and Free Transform. And I'm just going to take it and drag it and move it over until I've got the sizing that I want for my text. So I'm just eyeballing this right now. In Free Transforming, when I'm happy, I'll select the checkbox. So now I've got my quote in here and Lady Gaga's name. Now that I have my quote in here, I can do some playing around with it and modifying it and trying different things. So I want to make sure I'm on the text layer. I'm using the Text or Type tool. I'll go ahead and select it again. And I want to try out some different fonts. There's Amboy, kind of like that. Here is Arial. So you get the idea. So try out font styles until you find one you like. And I sort of like this Amboy a little bit better than my other options that I've chosen. So I'm going to stay with that. I might need to resize this text again. So select the Free Transform from the Edit and Free Transform menu. And now I'm just going to resize it till I'm happy with how it looks inside my window. Check mark to finish. Okay, we're almost there. And this next step, I want to use this text as my control to delete this black underneath so I can see through to Lady Gaga. So let's see how we can do that. So I'll make sure the text layer is selected. I want to click on this thumbnail by holding down my control key on the keyboard and then clicking. And when I do, notice the marching ants. It creates marching ants around the text. I'm going to turn off the text, but the marching ants are still there. I want to go to my black rectangular square that I've created. Make sure I click on it and make it active. And I want to delete. So I'm going to press the delete key, and now you can see that underneath this is the Lady Gaga image. So I've got this set up and I want to get rid of this marching ants, so I'll just do a select and deselect, or you can press Control D, and now I can see through to Lady Gaga underneath. Now you're going to play around with this until you're happy with how this looks and what this text looks like. I probably with this will actually increase some of these words, maybe put a few of them together on a line until I'm happy with the layout and the design of it. What I want to do is lighten the background image here a little bit so this text shines through and it's a little bit easier to read. So I'll select the layer, the thumbnail of the image itself that Lady Gaga is on, not the mask but the thumbnail. I'm going to come over here and choose my dodge tool. This is the dodge tool, which allows me to make sections lighter. So select that. I'm going to go ahead and leave this brush right around at 65. I can make it bigger or smaller as desired. I'm going to leave it right around there though at 65, 66. And I want to first start with the shadows of the image. I'll leave the exposure at 50%. And I'm going to come through here and just run my mouse over parts of this to kind of bring up some of the areas that I want to be a little bit lighter so it's easier to see. Now I'll change it to midtones and do the same thing. See how that's starting to make it a little easier to see what's going on. And then finally I'll choose the highlights, and once again I'll come through and just try to bring it over some of these areas to make it a little easier to see. If by chance I go too far and I want to make it a little bit darker again, then I would come over here and choose the burn, which is the opposite. It will darken up parts of the image, and come back over and maybe just go over the areas I want to really pop, like her lips here. I want those to show through a little bit better, so I'll hit shadows and I'm going to come in here and grab those lips. I want to darken them up, and I'll do highlights, same thing, come through and darken them up. I want the lips to show through more. So you can see I'm just sort of playing around with these using the burn and the dodge tool until I've gotten what I want with Lady Gaga showing through here, so I can see some of this detail of her hair and brushes. So you just play with that, try some different things until you're happy with the result. Okay? In this last step, we're going to add a little bit of color. So I want you to make sure in your layers panel you're on the one that has the black background with the text. Click on that and select New Layer right underneath it. Click New Layer. Now I want to fill this with white, so I'm going to come over here and get the paint bucket. Make sure the foreground is set to white and fill it. Now it looks like it's covered it completely, and that's because it has. Once I've done that though, I'm going to take this for the moment. I'm just going to bring the opacity down quite a bit on it. Now I'm going to come into, double click this, or you can click on FX to get to the layer styles, and I want to add some layer style to it. Alright, I'm going to start with this gradient overlay. So I've got this set up to 100, and I can choose different gradients, radial gradient, linear gradient. I'm actually going to use the linear though. I like that best. So I have that set up, and now I'll go ahead and click Okay. So I've got this gradient overlay right here. I'm going to come back up to opacity and I'm going to start bringing it up. I want to be able to see this background underneath here. So I'll bring it up until I'm happy with the result. Right about there, I think. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to get rid of this color on this side. I only want the gradient on that side. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this down underneath the one here. Bring this up above. That might be easier. So there it is underneath. I'm going to get my rectangular marquee and I'm going to create a rectangular marquee right here to grab that portion of it. Didn't quite get it, so let me try that one more time. There we go. And then I'm going to press the delete key because I want half of this to be in black and white and half of it to be in my gradient coloring. So I'll go ahead and get rid of this selection by select and deselect. Now I've got my results. I can play around with this, maybe reduce the opacity on this one a little bit if I feel like it's too much, and start bringing it up slowly until I'm happy with the result. There you go. Right about there is what I want. And I've pretty much done. I might do some more tweaking and playing around with it, but I've got my basic poster completed. I want to create different versions of this poster. So in order to make it a little easier to see, I'm going to pull this out here. I'm just grabbing the tab and dragging it. Then I'm going to grab the bottom right here and drag down so I can see everything. There we go. So I want to group all of these different layers you see here into one group. So first off, I'm going to create a new folder. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on this new folder, a group icon. I'm going to rename it by double clicking it, Gaga Poster 1. Now I want to grab all of these here, hold my shift key down and click on the bottom one. So I've grabbed them all. I'm going to drag them and drop them into this first poster and collapse it. So they're all there, but they're inside this group folder now. Now I want to duplicate this. So I can drag it down, the whole thing, onto the new layer icon, release, and that will duplicate it. And I'm going to rename it Gaga Poster 2. All right. I can also select this, right-click it, and tell it to duplicate the group. That's another way to duplicate it. And I'm going to call it Gaga Poster 3 and click OK. So really I have the exact same thing in all three of these. This is my original. I'm going to turn it off and turn on the one above it and open it up. And this is the one I want to modify and play with. Now you can do different things and try different things. Don't be afraid to do that and see what you come up with. One of the things I want to do is I'm going to get rid of this gradient overlay. And I'm just going to leave it as a black and white version of this document. I'm going to come down and get this here. And I'm going to come back over and I'm going to get the Dodge and Burn tool. Let me get this right here. I'm going to get the Burn tool. I'm going to have this up pretty big and I'm going to make this much darker. So I'm on here, I want to make this much darker here so I can really see this, get the shadows. I'm just dragging over it. Okay. And midtones. So I've just made a darker version of this particular image. So I have now I'm going to collapse this for a second. I have this color version and I have a pure black and white version. Turn this off and go to my third one. So I want to play with this some more and make some different changes. I'm going to just turn this off altogether so I don't have it at all. And what I want to do is just get rid of this. Okay. And I want to put an entire gradient or colorization over this entire layer. So I'm going to make a new layer and put it right above my image, right here. So underneath the text, but over that, I'm going to go over here and get my gradient tool, which is right here. I'm going to come up into my options bar for the gradient, and I'm going to choose a gradient that I would like to use. And I think I'll go ahead and just choose one that I like is just orange and yellow. I have options for linear or radial or star and so on. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as a linear gradient. I'm going to change my mode to multiply, leave it at 100%, and I'm going to come through here and go straight down, and I'm going to apply this gradient inside of here. Now it's obviously covering up this portion, which I don't want it to do. Not the entire thing at least. So I'm going to play with it some more. I'm going to get the selection tool. I'm on here. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to pull in all of this here, and I'm just going to straight up delete it. So now I've got a slightly different version of it. I'm going to Control Z and undo that. And this time what I want to do is go ahead and paint over this or erase some of this. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm trying out different design ideas that I might have. Get the brush tool. I'm going to set this way up, much larger. There we go. I'm going to come through with a soft brush, and what I want to do is erase some of this. Okay, let me try that again. Edit and undo. I want to get the brush. Let me come over and add a mask to that right there. I'm going to add a mask, and then I'm going to come over this and paint over it. So you get the idea. So I'm just playing around with these different choices that I might have. I'm going to delete that. I've got this back. I'm going to set this opacity down. So I'm just trying different ideas about what I might want to do with this poster. Okay, so I'm trying them out. Maybe I want to erase some of this, so make sure I've got this set. I've got the brush on, and I'm going to come through here, not 100%, but set it down some right in there maybe, and come back over this. So you can see I'm just trying out different ideas about what I might want to do for my different posters. You do not have to do what I've done exactly. You get to choose your own creative thoughts on what you might want to try. So my final three is this one, my original, my pure black and white one, in my orange and yellow sort of glow or gradient that I've applied. Do the same thing, come up with your other two designs that you like, and then we're ready to save these out into different files. Now that we have all three of these posters created, I'll just turn them on and off so you can see. I want to save the entire Photoshop file so I can come back and maybe edit tomorrow. Maybe I want to add a fourth poster idea based on what I have here. So I'm going to go File and Save As, and make sure I'm saving it as file type Photoshop so I can edit this file in the future. And then all I've got to do is click Save. It's going to give me an OK symbol. Now I've got it saved into my project folder. Now I want to save each of these out as individual JPEGs so I can put them on my portfolio website. So I'll select the first one. These are turned off. I'm going to select File, Save As. Make sure this is set to JPEG. Why JPEG? Because these are photographic images that I'm going to be using and putting on the web. So JPEG is really typically the best file format in this case, most times. So I'm going to call it poster 1. Make sure it's JPEG. It's going to my project folder and save. Make sure this is set to large because I want a nice quality image, and click OK. Now I'm going to turn this off, turn this one on, File, Save As. This one I'm going to call Gaga Poster 2. Again, save it as a JPEG so it will be displayed on the web as a JPEG image, and click Save. Once again, high quality, save it out, turn this off, turn on my third, File, Save As, JPEG format, go get JPEG, Gaga Poster 3. Set this to JPEG is what I want. All right, there we go. And save it, and away we go. If I go look at now this folder, I'm going to get my folder icon at the bottom and go click on this. You're going to see, move this over, I'm going to put extra large icons. So you can see there they are. There's Gaga Poster 1, 2, and 3. And here is my editing file for Photoshop. I can come back tomorrow and create more versions of this poster if I want. So I hope you have enjoyed this project. Once you get the Gaga posters done, I want you to recreate this concept and idea, but this time I want you to choose somebody that you admire, and it can be anyone, and pick a quote from that specific person. So that person and a quote from them, and recreate this poster project using your idol and their quote.